Let's talk about why businesses are still struggling to get AI right and what they can do to fix it. We're joined today by Shiv Ramji, the president of Auth0 at Okta, in a conversation today brought to you by Okta. Shiv, great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here in studio with us. We talk all the time about businesses seeing the potential of generative AI, but struggling to bring it to market. There was an MIT study that 95% of businesses that are trying to implement AI aren't doing so with profitability. And you recently spoke to a room about this. What did you find?
Yeah, so we talk to customers all the time, and I polled everybody in the room and said, how many of you are experimenting with AI or prototyping? And you could see like 80% of the room lit up and hands were up. And I said, no, keep your hands up if these experiments or prototypes are in production. And you could see only a few hands remained. And so when digging into why is that? And it turns out it's a lot of security concerns. And so, with AI, what happens is because these AI chatbots or agents that you create are non-deterministic and can really go access any system, I think a lot of CIOs, CTOs are kind of nervous because there is so much of their internal infrastructure that may not be protected. Remember, in a traditional application, like if you're using an app today, whether it's at work or if it's a consumer app, what you can do in the application is very deterministic. Like, you can search for something, maybe you can update your own information, or you can order something, but you can't instruct their application to just go out there and do, reasoning and research and maybe come back to you and go out there again and do more. So it's a very non-deterministic access pattern. And so I think this creates a whole host of risks for a lot of the customers and companies that we talk to who are really nervous in implementing these agents in production without a lot of guardrails.
So can I ask you, is it the businesses that are playing with this technology? It's not just that they're using AI to go navigate current systems. It's that the potential they see with AI is effectively to rewrite the entire basis of software that they're working with. Because if you just had AI navigating current apps, then these problems wouldn't be a major issue. But if you're trying to rewrite something to make it useful for artificial intelligence, that's where you run into these problems.
Exactly. And I think actually that's the power of AI, which is because these agents are non-deterministic and can do reasoning on our behalf and practically can talk to any machine interface. And what I mean by machine interface is it can be an API. It could be a document that's on your Google Drive or Microsoft Drive, if that's the product that you're using, or it could be an internal wiki, and it can also access the open web, right? So now, and that's really, really powerful. And so everybody recognizes like, wow, you can do a lot of amazing things with these agents or chatbots, but there is also a risk that now the chatbot can access sensitive information. I always think of like, imagine if we're all working in a company and I have a chatbot that's doing some HR tasks. And imagine if somebody could ask the HR task and say, hey, can you go see Shiv's salary information? Well, that is very private, sensitive information. But imagine if that was exposed to somebody who was not supposed to have access to that information. That could be catastrophic. And there are already examples of this, by the way. I mean, one recent one that comes to mind is sometime in the summer, McDonald's had a breach with their chatbot. So the chatbot kind of processing applications for people who want to work at McDonald's. And there were several issues, everything from an internal API was exposed internally. The admin account password was 1234, which is
a high security password.
Exactly, so not secure at all.
Right.
And so you see, these are the types of things that I think companies have to be really careful about. And so I think that's kind of one example of sensitive. And so millions of applicant information was just leaked from this chatbot,
At
and that's
McDonald's.
catastrophic. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it is interesting. There was another example, I think, of people in one of these chatbot applications asking some questions about their company, and then the chatbot, because it had access, then sharing answers from the CEO's emails.
Yes.
So this is something that's happening all the time. So I want to make sure that I nail this, because I think this is important. So what you're saying to us today is that we talk about this stat all the time, that there's so many, I think only 20% of AI builds make it into production. That might be generous.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is it's not the technology holding back these companies from rolling it out. It is the security and access issues that come into play when you're starting to roll out this probabilistic technology.
Yeah. Yeah, the way I like to frame this very simply, because it's very easy to understand. So the first thing you want to understand, whether it's a chatbot or an agent, is that, who should have access to this information. And this is the classic identity and access management problem. So if you have an agent working on your behalf, we want to make sure, that the agent is authenticated, that the agent is valid. We also want to authenticate you with the agent, and you are authorizing the agent to do stuff on your behalf. So this is like the who part of the equation. And then comes like, what can the agent do? Hopefully, if the agent is working on your behalf, the only thing an agent can access are things that you have access to, right? But if the agent goes and access to information that you're not supposed to have access to, that's a problem. So like, what can they access and do is really, really important. So all of this basically is the classic identity and access management problem. But I think with agents, things go a little bit further, which is now you need much, much finer grain authorization, right? So today we have systems that will do coarse grain authorization. And what I mean by that is Alex is part of a certain group, and that group can read these documents. Or Alex is part of this group, that group can write, right? But we all know today, like, just think about what you do at work every day and kind of the myriad of applications you're accessing. Well, in some apps you can read, maybe you can write, maybe you can view, maybe you can comment. And in some cases, you're the owner, so you can do everything. So the whole web of permissions get very, very complicated. And by the way, they get updated in real time. So identity is kind of the core, the first problem that we need to solve. And then the second problem is kind of authorization, or kind of what do you have access to and what can you do with that information?
It sounds like it's a real issue, because you tell me if I'm wrong here. My understanding about the way that AI is being implemented today in organizations, oftentimes it's coming bottom up. Yes, the CEOs are saying, can we have an AI strategy, and they're pushing it down on leadership. But oftentimes it's somebody that really knows AI quite well, has been listening to this show, has been following the news, has been experimenting on their own, and sees a use within the organization and wants to do, let's say, a contract with an OpenAI or an Anthropic to use the API and implement it. The problem is when they start to get these projects underway, they start running into some of these issues that you're talking about, and that's when you really need. Who do you need buy-in from to be able to get this underway?
I think right now in most companies, I think the chief information security officers, the chief security officers are the ones who are tasked with figuring all this out, and usually they don't even have the inventory of all the internal APIs that can be exposed, right?
It's like total new territory for them.
It's new territory.
This is not what they sort of...
Exactly.
If you've been working for 10 years, this is brand new for you.
This is brand new. And by the way, it's not their fault, candidly, because
Of course.
remember, applications up until today, the application was a front door. You really controlled once Alex logged in, the app controlled what you can access, what data, what database. But in the world of AI agents and chatbots, I mean, they can go query, if a database is open, it will go query that database if it's relevant for the type of task you have asked. And so I think this is really burdensome for CISOs and CIOs and CSOs, because they're like, wait a minute, we don't even have an inventory of all the systems that we have, let alone which ones are secure or not. And so this becomes a pretty tricky problem for them to navigate and figure out. And so they're the ones who are essentially now tasked with locking the systems down, or essentially ensuring that there are enough guardrails in place so that these projects can go into production.
Right. And we were speaking previously. You told me that only 10% of companies overall have an AI governance process set into place.
Correct.
So, I mean, talk a little bit about what is an AI governance process or document, and then how does not having one sort of hold a company back?
Yeah, so I think different companies approach this differently. There is no one way to solve this. Obviously, there are a few frameworks companies are deploying, but essentially, you want to have it's not even AI governance; it's really data governance. So you want to make sure that all of your systems that are housing, like sensitive data or critical data, that there is a system to make sure that only people who should have access to it have access to it. Now, there are different levels of sensitivity, right? Like if somebody just accessed some meeting notes for a team, that may not be as consequential. But imagine if I was in a meeting and I was talking about a customer and the customer information was accessed by somebody. That could be problematic. My other example was, my salary information was disclosed. That could be problematic. Or if a team is working on a confidential M&A, right? They're trying to buy a company, and that project name or the company name got kind of exposed internally. That would be problematic. And so I think a lot of companies, a good practice has been classifying the different types of sensitive information you have in the company, and then really making sure that all access to that information is really locked down, and you have this centralized way of managing permissions, so that whether it's an app you create or an agent or a chatbot, that it is essentially going through your centralized framework for policies of who can access what information. So, and a lot of companies today, they may have classification for customer data, for example. That's pretty common, right? But they don't have a classification for all the internal stuff. And internally in companies, we all know we have documents that we write, we have wiki pages internally, we have some internal databases, we may even have APIs that are just internal only. They're not meant for external exposure. And in the previous world, we'd have thought, well, I don't need to worry about this. And I think now you actually have to worry about all of those endpoints that I just talked about, because those are all things that a chatbot can access. And
all right.
Information can leak through any one of those avenues.
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot of maybe gloom and doom, or like all the problems with AI. Yeah. So I'm actually kind of curious to go a little bit more on the constructive side. When you get this right, what does it enable you to do?
So far, the examples that we've seen the easiest one I can think of that the benefit is so obvious is just in software engineering. I mean, you've probably already heard a lot of stats from a lot of the large tech companies where they're claiming anywhere between 10 to 30% of their code is now written by agents.
Yeah, some are saying 90%, and people are like, well, that shows. Yeah. So 10 and 30 seems realistic.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there are companies that are probably early on the cutting edge that maybe it's higher, but you see the benefits there, right? Agents can go learn on your code base, can make recommendations, can write code, can analyze your systems. So I think their agents are pretty useful, and they are making the lives of engineers much, much better. Engineers are happier because they get these agents that are assisting them either in a co-pilot or companion way, which is pretty amazing. And so they are more productive, and they're able to produce, ship things much, much faster.
And what about outside of the coding realm? Is there potential for this in use cases outside of coding?
Yeah, so there are other categories. I know in healthcare, healthcare has a lot of well, it's highly regulated. It has a lot of manual processes and manual entry. So I've seen. I can't mention customer names, but we have customers who are using agents to essentially process medical information
Yep.
for their patients and customers. So a lot of benefits there. And you can imagine other scenarios. I think retail and pretty soon retail and e-commerce is another area where you will see these agents play a pretty big role. I can see travel being another category. I want to travel to Japan in November. I can easily instruct an agent to say, go find me the right airfare, build me an itinerary. And if the agent knows kind of my preference of what kind of, if I have any meal preferences, any hotel preferences. So those things are really valuable because I'm really busy. I don't have the time to figure this out. And an agent can go do all this work for me. And I think it's extremely helpful to me as a consumer. Now, of course, hopefully it's done with all the security controls and, it's not signing me up and buying airfare that I haven't approved. But so there are many scenarios where I think agents will make our lives easier. And today you're seeing this in either categories where there are languages and instruction, so software engineering, or categories where there's a lot of manual work and automation can help, and you're seeing those categories are the ones that are benefiting the most.
Yeah, just to talk a little bit about the stakes in healthcare. My father's a podiatrist, and he's retired now, but spent so much of his career just taking notes and putting them into EMRs, filling out forms for insurance. I think that with the, assuming that you have the right systems that could protect patient data and make sure that it's not being exposed in the wrong areas, that could have saved, not just hours, not just days, weeks, months, maybe even years of his life from
Correct.
doing this stuff. And actually could have spent more time taking care of patients.
Yeah, that's a very good example of what you just said, which is just simple things, it's just data entry about.
Yeah.
I saw a patient.
People underestimate how much time we spend in our economy just doing data entry.
Yeah, we do a lot of
crazy.
data entry. So I think that's where you already see AI is having a pretty big impact already. Mm-hmm. And we're still early. I think we're going to see lots of interesting use cases. And the other thing that I think that hasn't fully played out is, the interfaces for chatbots or agents are also evolving really fast.
Right.
So we haven't seen, outside of like the experience of talking to a chatbot, which is ChatGPT. Kind of when ChatGPT came out, that became a way to interact with AI. But I think there are a lot more scenarios and experiences that are still being built that we haven't fully experienced. And an example of that would be you're seeing companies now launching their own browsers. And these browsers can do all kinds of stuff for you, right? They can read your email and they can act on your email, and then it will go do tasks on your behalf. There are other agents that actually mimic that will mimic how you browse the internet, and then it will essentially mimic that and to make sure that it's doing it the way you do. So we're still early on these. Like, there are new ways to interact with AI that we still haven't fully experienced. And I think that will probably bring all kinds of amazing benefits and productivity gains that we haven't even kind of fully understood the impact of.
Yeah. So let's drill down on that a bit, because we talk often on the show about how there are different uses of AI. To me, it really breaks down into three categories. One is agent, the other is thought partner, the other is companion.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes thought partner and companion are the same thing, depending on how much you trust your AI companion to handle your thoughts. Why do you believe in the agent use case? Because it has become, we've talked about this on the show, it has become a bit of a buzzword in the business world right now. So why is it worth the hype?
I think there are three characteristics about agents that are super interesting. One, they're asynchronous, so it can go do. You don't have to be in front of your laptop or phone, and the input is not limited to like your mouse and how fast you can type. So it's asynchronous. Second is, I think now, especially now with agents, they can do long running tasks. Now, most of the experience we have today when we ask questions, we're doing research, I think you'll see agents responding fairly quickly. But there are tasks that require quite a bit of research that may take a long while. And so I think agents are perfect for these long running tasks. So whether it's minutes, hours, I think there'll be some tasks that will run for days or weeks. Really? Yeah. So we're just we'll come to that kind of use case soon, and it'll be super interesting because, all these models are getting large, their context windows are getting bigger. So you will see scenarios where agents will be working on something for days and they'll come back to you. And I think the last part is it's non-deterministic, and I think that's really powerful. And what I mean by that is, let's say you had you had certain prompts, or you asked the agent to do a few tasks, and it comes back with a result or an output, and you're like, oh, you know what? This is not quite what I'd asked for. Take what I had given you before, but here are the modifications. Now go do something different or enhance what you just did, right? Now it may go access other sources of information or may go do additional research on your behalf, so I think that's incredibly powerful. And so I think agents bring these three characteristics that, have the potential of kind of really improving our lives in pretty profound ways.
All right. So for those who are building these things practically, I want to get a little bit of insight from you in terms of how this is happening. Obviously, you work at Okta. Okta is helping companies set up agents. So how exactly is this process taking place of you working with companies to be able to handle some of these tricky things we talked about in the beginning and actually set up agents?
Yeah, so we do four things currently that really help our customers and the developers that are building these agent experiences, right? So the first one is pretty simple, which is we verify both the agent and the user. So making sure that you are who you say you are, you're Alex, and that the agent that you have essentially consented this agent to go do stuff on your behalf. The second thing that we do is we provide capabilities for our customers to essentially secure APIs. So this capability called Token Vault, because in this world, agents are going to be talking to lots of systems, and it's really cumbersome to go system by system or API by API and figure out how to handle their security. So we do this in a scalable way and make it super easy for a developer to use our product to essentially make sure that all of the API and agent communication is secure. Then the third one is agents will always need humans in the loop, or at least at the moment, right? And like just this example I had shared about the travel example, right? I want to go to Japan in November. I give a bunch of criteria to the agent to go find me the best itinerary. But before the agent purchases the itinerary, I probably want to review it, right? So there are always tasks that you will want to review. And so we call this having human in the loop.
Right.
So we do this, it's async authorization is kind of the third thing. And the last one is agents will need information such as retrieval augmented generation, which is commonly known as RAG. So you may we want to feed your own custom data into these agents. Well, how do you do that? You need fine-grained permissions and fine-grained authorization for that. So that's the fourth capability that we're offering. So this whole kind of suite or package of products is called Auth0 for AI agents. And this is kind of what customers are using today to make sure that their agents are out. They can deploy the agents securely in production.
So are these agents being set up as human workers within companies, or like do they have seats in like different software systems, or is it just being set up outside?
Very good question. So I think agents now are going to be treated, I call these like principals, and the idea is like, humans they are a principal. Right. So I think that agents are going to be treated as kind of its own entity or a principal. And we will be obviously verifying humans, but we also have to verify agents. And so the same principles will apply to agents.
So in a software system, will you have like, let's say 400 employees and then 1,000 agents sitting?
Yes.
Like just the same type of
Yeah,
authorization
this
system.
is happening today. In
Really?
fact, yeah. So again, won't name any customers, but this is happening today. I have seen our customers. You probably use some HR or HR system where you have a directory of everybody in your company. Well, I've seen our customers where you see employees and then you see agents in the same directory.
Yeah.
So this is already happening.
They're side by side. Talk a little bit about verification, because you said earlier, we have to make sure that this is really Alex, or but what maybe I'm having an AI do something on my behalf. Can you distinguish when something is robot and when something is human?
That is going to be, I think that's incredibly hard right now. I mean,
Right.
So let's kind of zoom out. How do you do verification today? For example, if you're opening a bank account, Alex, today, you'll be taking selfies and photos of your driver's
Clicking
license.
every crosswalk in the picture.
Yeah, right. You're doing all of that.
Yep.
And but AI is getting really, really good at this. That it's incredibly hard for humans to detect what is generated by a human or what is AI generated. But I'd argue even machines are having a hard time, right? So machines also have false positive rates, and they are pretty high. So I think verification is going to be a real problem. And there are two things here. One, how do you verify Alex is human? And I think the second one is, the content that Alex generated, was it actually generated by Alex? So these are like two different areas of verification. And I think we'll see a rise in kind of verifiable digital credentials more and more. And that will be kind of one way to make sure that I can verify Alex is who he says he is. And so this area is developing fairly quickly. And standards are being developed, and we support some of them already. But you will see a lot more with digital credentials, and increasingly you'll essentially take all your offline credentials, your passport, your ID, maybe even your school certificate, and they will all become digital credentials that you verify every so often. And so then when you're interacting with systems that require sensitive information or verification, they will interact with credentials that you have essentially verified. So that will be the way. That'll be one of the ways that I think we can ensure that we reduce fraud and prevent fraud, basically, so that somebody can't steal your identity.
Did you see this thing where Ethan Mollick, the Wharton professor, I think he asked one of the latest bots or latest models to generate a CAPTCHA and pass it?
Yeah.
And these are like pretty complicated CAPTCHAs that they're tackling. So if they can get those, I mean, what do you think about it? If they can get those, can they get others?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, I think this is why this is going to be interesting. Like this is like a race, right? Which is like, how do you prevent bad or malicious actors from gaining access to systems or causing a lot of damage to a company because of the different fraud and mechanisms they come up with. So, I mean, all these checks. I was reading something recently about how every company has been interviewing candidates on Zoom and online. Well, there are so many tools now you can install on your computer that will do a real-time analysis of the question the interview is asking, and will give you an answer that you can replay back. So you're seeing some companies are actually moving to saying, well, all interviews are going to be in person now. So that's like a big reversal from the last few years. And so I think you will see maybe some of these verification methods and mechanisms are going to be maybe annoying, but more in person. I always think of you use Clear when you go to the airport.
I use it for sports games because you don't have to pay a subscription to get into sports games. But yeah, exactly.
But that's like an interesting example, right? Because you did your initial verification in person. Somebody had to really check your ID or your passport and say, are you really who you say you are?
Right.
And then now it allows you to go through the airport lines or get you to a game. So, right, that's like an in-person high assurance verification. Like I literally checked your passport. and
Yeah.
verify you are who you are. So I do see some of those mechanisms kind of becoming more important. And I like this interview example is like the easiest one where companies are saying, well, we're not going to do Zoom interviews anymore. You have to come in person.
Yeah, and look at us today. I mean,
Yeah.
here we're in
Yep,
person,
we're in
and it's
person.
funny because like I've interviewed the CEO of Klarna, Sebastian Siemiatkowski. He now has his AI avatar going out and doing earnings calls.
Yes.
And the Zoom CEO also has his AI avatar
Yeah.
doing earnings calls. I mean, it's going to get to the point where it's going to be really tricky to tell. So this verification piece becomes super important.
Yeah, verification. And I think verification of humans, and then I think it's also content.
Right.
Although
Content as well.
Yeah, I think content on the content side though, there are standards already being.
Do we
kind
have
of,
to like wink and be like, this is real, people?
no, but digital watermarking has kind of been around for a while, and there are standards around content verification that are also being developed, and so I think you will see proliferation of more watermarking technologies to kind of determine what's original versus AI generated. I'm not saying, by the way, all AI generated stuff is bad, right? Like, I mean, people are generating images and videos, and if you go to Instagram, you'll see all these funny, Yetis and whatever.
Shrimp Jesus.
Yeah, they have they have all these dad jokes or whatever jokes they're coming up with or content. I mean, there are people who love that content and view that content and enjoy it. So I think there's a place for both, but there will be scenarios where I think you do want to verify that this was content generated by Alex, and so how do you do that? And so I think maybe some of these watermarking technologies will kind of be adopted a lot more.
Well, Shiv, this was fascinating. Can you tell folks where they can go if they want to learn more about what Okta provides?
Yeah, so you can go to auth0.com and you'll see
auth0.com.
auth0.com, and you'll see all the capabilities we have with regards to how we help secure AI if you are building agents. And if you're a company that's essentially, you already have agents and you want to secure them, then obviously you want to go visit Okta.com. So you have two products and we're serving two different use cases, and both are available today for you to deploy.
Well, Shiv, great to see you. Thank you again for coming in. I think maybe we'll see, as companies get this stuff figured out, that number of 20% moving into production or 95% unprofitable, that will go up.
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah, well, the unprofitability will go down. The profitability will go up. Great to see you, Shiv. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll be back on the feed with another video soon.